And welcome back to Battlefield Banter. This time we're doing something a little different. Doug is here with me. We're looking at the today GMT's fifth edition of the Russian campaign, which is recently come off P500. Is in well, Doug has a copy, and
Yep,
today
I've got a copy.
we're going to look at first impressions because we've been pushing a few counters around on this, and then we're going to try our best to run through a turn or two to show you how it works. So Doug, what are your first impressions of this game?
Well, I'll tell you, I think it came off P500 maybe about a year ago, right? It's July of 2025. But ironically, didn't we discover recently it's no longer on the GMT website?
Yes, for some reason, I don't know if anyone listening knows why you cannot. It's not. You just don't see it on GMT's website anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if that's because it's no longer available in the warehouse or maybe it's a licensing thing. I don't know, but I've got my hard copy, and as you would expect from GMT, my first impression was, wow, the components were nice, they were big, I could read them, lots of player's aid, quality. It's too, I think I didn't get the mounted maps, I just got the regular maps that I'll put
Well,
on a piece.
really? You didn't get the mounted maps?
I normally get the mounted maps. I prefer those,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't do that.
Oh,
I'm trying
okay.
to
Yeah.
economize
That's a
just a
big
little
cost
bit.
adder as well, right? Isn't it?
It usually adds, 20-30% to the
Mm-hmm.
cost. At
Mm-hmm.
least I think that's been my experience. But
Right.
as you would expect out of a GMT game, total quality.
Mm-hmm.
I got no complaints there. I think that's one of the reasons they're probably my favorite game company.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Compass Games would be a close second.
Right.
But that's the first impression out of the box. I love the Vassal mod too.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty colorful, although we did find a problem with the Vassal module. Um, I
A
think it
nitpick with the
was
actual module, I'd say, right? You're talking about the
it,
unit designations.
well, no, it was when we clicked on optional or something.
Oh,
It made them disappear, and then you couldn't get them back.
there was no undo. That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
no undo. That's what it was. We were kind of playing around, and and our hope here is to play some. That's kind of our brand is do playthroughs. Although we think that this game also, because it's a traditional hex and counter game, I think this is a fifth edition. It goes back to pre Avalon Hill. John Edwards was the developer.
Mm.
But I think at the time, and I literally just went to Noble Knight Games. I've ordered some stuff from them before. I must have found 10 issues of the general Avalon Hills magazine, long out of print, that I did not have that have article campaign. I'm
Mm-hmm.
$3 a throw. I'm going to order all of those.
Mm.
But I would say my biggest impression was that the first impulse, second impulse movement in a turn at the time apparently was revolution.
Huh. Really?
And I think it's designed to replicate kind of blitzkrieg
Mm-hmm.
tactics, but oddly enough, in a traditional hex and counter game, no advance, right?
Right.
And of course,
That's what the second impulse is for, in a way, right? That is you have the attack. So the player one, as we'll see, the Germans here will do an attack. Will do a move, and then they'll do an attack, and then they don't pass it over to the other player. They'll do a second move with some limitations and another attack. So, but yeah, after any attack, there will be if there's a defender retreat result, the attackers don't follow up. They just hang out.
yeah, yeah. So it's kind of interesting. And so I think as you build your defense using terrain, the rivers and the woods and the marsh and the rest of it, you kind of have to be careful. There is a zone of control, the six hexes around the unit
Hmm.
that force stopping. And of course, if units are next to each other, there is forced combat. So it brings up the old hex and counter tactic of a soak off count
Right, right, right.
attack, right?
Did
Like I'm
talking
going to
of
do
the
a one to
terrain,
three here.
just looking at the map
Yeah.
here, did you the rivers here, if you're on the river, if you're behind the river, like this guy is behind the river, let me see if I can find the my correct window to click in. This guy here is behind this river, so he gets to the
Yes.
rivers, but this guy here is not.
Right. Yeah, I
and
find that
and
annoying. That's
and this
one of those kind of
this guy these guys are not getting the benefit of the river. You have to these guys are getting the benefit of the river, and if these guys here were to come and move into the river hex you see and attack this one and this one, then their defense values would be doubled. But so that's the rivers. It's an oddity of this game, right? Probably you're going to mention the rivers don't go along the hex sides; they go along the middle of the hexes.
Yeah, I know, you know, a lot of the games I owned in the 70s and 80s, the rivers were along, as you just said, along the hex side. So it was always easy to determine the kind of river view. This looks beautiful, but to me it's not as functional. But you know, that's just a minor thing.
Hmm.
Could in a fifth edition, could GMT have corrected that? I don't know. I mean, I know that there's a huge group of gamers that you and I are hoping to find with this YouTube video, and I hope make comments as to why it was done like that. But I think as I read through the designer in the rule book, they wanted to be kind of careful to not make too many. They wanted to honor the kind of the historical traditions of the development of the game
Right. Right.
over the however many
Yeah.
years it is.
There's a very good YouTube video by someone's posted a review of the Avalon Hill edition. He had a very good he bought an old copy, like a second-hand copy, a used copy of the Avalon Hill version of this game, and then the fourth edition and the fifth edition, and he contrasted them all, and is very very interesting.
Yeah,
The
I think I forget that guy's name, but
right, we'll have to post it in
a
the
retired
comments.
gentleman, and
Yeah,
yeah, very. I've seen some of his
yeah.
YouTube videos. I
The
think he was at the weekend in the warehouse
right.
when we were up
This one
there.
is much bigger, bigger footprint because they increased the hex sizes and the unit, the counters. So it's for it's that's why it's the fourth edition is a mounted map. It's smaller. It's the same footprint as the I think as the if I recall rightly as the old Avalon Hill one, and it's still a nice map. But it didn't have any of the optional rules. This one throws in a lot of optional rules, which I guess have been developed over the years by players and
Yeah, that was kind of explained in detail in the designer notes that they kind of gathered up all of the optional rules, a couple of which we're going to use, and as well as variants, a whole bunch of different variants. That
hmm
you know, they I think the original classic game is what's most often used today in tournaments. I think this game is still very popular at stuff like Origins and some of the bigger I've never
right,
been to,
right,
um,
yeah.
where people are really playing competitively.
Mhm.
I don't know that I'd ever want to do that. I mean, I am competitive, but I enjoy the bantering and
Right.
playing and as opposed to getting in a round robin tournament.
Mhm.
You know,
One of the
people
things I
play
notice
games.
about it is it's very there's a lot of downtime for the other player. In that
Yes.
the Germans, for example, will do a move and then they'll think about their moves, and then they'll think about the attacks and calculate all the odds and do the rolls, and then they'll repeat the cycle, do a secondary move and secondary combat, and the Russian player in all this time actually has nothing much to do. He doesn't even control the retreat direction of his own troops. The German player does that, and then it, it turns to the Russian player who does the same kind of thing, and then the German players that's sitting there twiddling his thumbs. So it's old school in that regard. You compare it to a game like of the same theater like No Retreat, the Russian Front. That's much more interactive with the card assisted game. So you're playing the German player will be playing cards, the Russian player will be looking at his deck and saying, "Do I want to play these counter cards?" And then
Yeah.
placing the attacks, and then a Russian player would be maybe placing counter blows to do soak off attacks and so forth. And so a lot more interactive of a game, a more modern game. But this one I think would appeal
Yeah.
to people who've played this style of game like in their youth, and very
Right.
and sort of
Yeah,
um,
I no, I think you're right, and I think, you know, in my youth, I was often playing a game single-handed, right? I was playing both sides to the best of my ability, and I would sit there and I'd ponder and I'd ponder and I'd ponder. I think you did a great job there describing that's kind of as we started a couple weeks ago playing a couple of moves, that was a feeling I had. In fact, that was the genesis of this video. I was sitting there kind of watching. kind of not. You make all of your moves and count up your attacks, and I quickly scrawled out, a bunch of bullet points of what my impression campaign. And at the
Hmm.
end of that gaming evening, I said, "Hey, we ought to put together a video on."
Hmm.
So,
Right, right. Yep.
yeah, some downtime, and
Hmm.
you're right. In No Retreat, the non-facing player really stay on their toes,
Hmm.
which kind of leads me to my second impression. I think this is generally considered by most in game reviews that I've seen on YouTube, and again, that's not the entire universe, one of the finer depictions of the Eastern Front
Hmm.
during World War II. I think No Retreat is up there as well. You and I together tried another one, same designer of Carl Paradis, Absolute War.
Hmm.
Um, we had mixed feelings on that one. It's a fine game, GMT quality, but I haven't played a third Russian campaign other than a tactical game. Uh, Memoir 44. I think we played the last 100 yards. I think we scenario, but not the grand strategy. What other games are?
Grand strategy, yeah, I don't have any others in my collection. The tactical ones are a completely different feel, right? So,
Yeah, yeah,
but um,
definitely.
but this one, on a plus side, it's the mechanics are very simple, really. So I
Oh
think if
yeah,
you knew the rules, like Doug and I are like fairly new. I'm new to the game anyway, so
I'm
it would
definitely.
move along a lot faster once you get the get the mechanics down because we haven't thrown in all the chrome of all the optional rules. We're just the one on the there are some rules where if you leave your if you end your move adjacent to the opponent, you have to attack them. So there is a sort of a there is a I'm not sure if it's called there is a workaround in the rules where if you go up to say a city that you want to attack, like Leningrad, and then you put 2 units there, and then how you have 1 unit do its mandatory attack, then you satisfy that requirement, and it does whatever it does. Let's say it has an attack or retreat. Then on the Russian side, the Russians either have to evacuate Leningrad, or they in turn have to attack the German unit that's still there. So um, that mechanism is makes it quite easy to game the system in a way and capture cities which were harder in historically speaking
Right.
to capture. So there's an optional rule, the fortress rule, which prevents that. So we're playing that one.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to playing this game more and learning it so that we get to the point where it's not necessarily beer and pretzels, and the Players Aid, another YouTube channel, like they just had a whole episode on defining beer and pretzels games, right?
Did they
And I don't think this meets their definition
really?
anyway. Yeah, because their definition involved you could literally be a couple beers in and not be worried about, the CRT table and all the rest of it. And so this probably wouldn't fit that. But I can imagine having, because it's so straightforward, the rules, once you understand them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more you play, your strategy gets,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that's what we get in Combat Commander, in Napoleon Command and Colors. We know the game so well that we
Right.
can advance in our
Right. Right.
gameplay to
Right.
like really get good at it. And that's when I think wargaming is at its
Mm-hmm.
it's the historical kind of what if, the historical simulation, but you have the, so
Right.
I think this game is definitely capable of that. I
Yeah.
think it
Yeah.
could become a favorite because I'm fascinated by the Eastern Front.
Mm-hmm. So
Um,
in the
the
setup here, you are constrained. For example, I'm just zooming in on the if I can move this around appropriately on the northern section of the map, for example. The setup is you've got the German units marked with an N, the Army Group North. They have to attack the
ones around Konigsberg,
right. They have to attack. Yes, they have to attack the Baltic Military District, which is this area. Here is the Baltic Military District, and the ones marked with a C, Central Army Group, have to attack the Western Military District, and the ones armed with the S, the ones noted with a S, the Southern Army Group South, must attack into what is this district called down here? There it is. It's the Kiev military district. So there's
Yeah,
you're constrained.
Kiev.
So I'm betting that there are over the years like the chess opening moves have been developed for this game, and we don't know any of
Yeah, we
those,
don't know those.
obviously.
In fact, in opening moves, I'm looking at the southern half of the map there, and I see I left a glaring hole open
uh,
there for your Romanians to take advantage of.
right,
Kind of
right,
interesting.
yes.
That might be one of those fatal errors we say, this is not going to work out well. Let's just go ahead and correct it before we get
Do you
started
want
and
to
waste.
go for it?
Uh, well, I guess I could. Well, the problem. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, this guy. I could move that cavalry up there, and that would probably do it, right? Yeah, he's still in those little lines. You've got, I'll show this for the viewers. You've
Yep,
got
yep.
these little green lines up and down, and that I think that's cavalry. I don't know that it's mechanized because it's got the classic,
Mm,
little stripe there. Is that a NATO
it's just cavalry, right?
cavalry?
Yeah.
I assume those are mechanized, but they're
Nope,
they're
that's
not
just
tank.
horses. That's your Cossacks.
Oh, is that just those are my
Right. I think
Cossacks? Oh,
that's one of the things about this. When you move up the map here, it looks to me like the mechanized infantry, they switch from the NATO standard symbols to like this guy here in the south on the top there is
right.
mechanized infantry with the half track. I
Yeah,
don't think the Russians at this point in the war seem to have any mechanized infantry. They've got their
yeah. Well, I definitely tried to set up a little farther away from you.
mhm.
I know in our first attempt at this, I seemed to lose an awful lot of units that were never going to come back. So let me
uh,
go to my first impressions. Speaking of battles, the CRT, the combat results table, seemed to be very clean,
let's have a
very
look at that.
straightforward.
There
It
we go.
went from like, 1 to 5 to 7 to 1, and
Hmm.
then higher than that and lower than that as well. But very definable things. I would add as the CRT, the plane mechanics here early Stukas and later the Russians get some planes. But the Stukas, as long as I think they're within a headquarters, like you've got in the middle of the map, that HQ center near Brest and just south of Warsaw. Near that HQ, you can take a Stuka and it yields a 3 to 1 combat shift. So I can't recall if it just adds um,
Adds three columns, I think.
3 columns. That's
Hmm.
the terminology I was going for.
Right,
Anytime you lay down a Stuka, it adds 3 columns.
right.
That was
Pretty
that was
devastating.
kind
You
of
have
an
to wonder.
interesting way to
Yeah.
handle air warfare.
Hmm. Hmm. So you've got
I thought that was
one
nice.
HQ can command one Stuka. Well, initially in this stage of the war, the weather is clear. 1941. You see in the air power availability chart, the Germans have three Stuka counters available. The Russians have no Sturmovix. And so the application of so each Ed quarter, which is they have three, can place one Stuka unit on a battle within 8 hexes and increase the odds of that battle by 3 columns, which is a 3 to 1 would become a 4 or 5 would become a it would go to the 9 to 1. It wouldn't. It would go three
Right,
columns. So which is
right.
quite devastating.
Yeah, it can be. And speaking of the combat results table, surrendered units don't come back.
Yeah, that's the
Now,
DS.
fortunately, yeah, that's a DS, and in the CRT, in the 4 to 1 and 5 to 1, 6 to 1 columns, DS is only a die roll of 6, which seemed to come up a lot for the Germans in our first game. And then on the 7 to 1, 9 to 1 column, it's a die roll of 6 and a
Mm,
5.
right. And then a 10 to
So
1, you just roll over them. That's an overrun, which is an automatic
yeah,
surrender. Right.
good point.
Yeah.
Good point. That's just automatic surrender, and then they're gone forever,
Hmm. Right.
which gives the German incentive to do that.
Right. Right.
So I think there's a strategy. It's tactics that you really want to try and concentrate at a certain point to get as many surrenders as you can so that the Russians can't bring those units.
Right, which I
I
suppose would
think
be
that's probably the
historically
real
accurate,
key.
right?
Yeah, I think it replicates when they would completely surround
Hmm.
Russians and
Hmm.
then pack them off to a POW camp,
Right.
mostly die,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
um,
Um, let's see, the other thing, not a lot of Chrome. It just seems to be a very basic game, which it harkens back to the old hex and counter games. We were talking off air before we came on
hmm.
how I have 5 or 6 old Avalon Hill games. This doesn't qualify as that. It started out as an old Avalon Hill game, but GMT is upgraded. But
Right,
I
but
have
the
some
but the
older.
play is the same. Right? If you took the Avalon
The
Hill
play
game
is
and
the
played it, it
same.
would be
Yeah,
very similar. Right.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And to me, I like that because I think that's a playable game in a 4 or 5, 6 hour stretch on a
Hmm.
Saturday afternoon.
Hmm.
So at least
Yep.
that's what I'm hopeful of.
Right. Yep.
Um, let's see what else. Oh, I already mentioned in the Vassal mod, and I love the fact these people out there building these Vassal modules. It blows me away. Basically, unpaid, and that they're such high quality. But we did figure out, so I'd be careful when you click it on the OOB.
Hmm.
Um, it somehow erased all the units, and we weren't able to.
You can see it,
Draw
and
that.
then the OOB there. Actually, I'm not sure I'm showing it. I need to open up another window. Let me just do that so I can do that. And show. It was what we did wrong was within the OOB. There's a standard game and an optional game, and when you clicked on the optional game, I think all the standard game, just to see what does this do, all the counters all changed, and there was no undo. It was something like that. So we're back after a little trouble with the Vassal module there, to be honest, which we'll talk
Yeah,
about in a second. And we've had to redo a restart, which included redoing the overall setup, which is so that's why it's changed a little bit. You'll observe from the previous the earlier part of the video. But the problem was, as we were just chatting when it happened, when the reinforcements and the vassal module, you've got the optional and the regular reinforcements tables, and you have to be very careful which one you select on the and when you launch the game is the one you're going to stick with. Because if you switch in the vassal module, then it just eliminates all the units on the reinforcements tables, which is quite a lot, and then you're in a bit of
yeah,
trouble.
yeah. All the little units are literally on battle. I think when the reinforcements are coming on, you drag them on there.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Key is when you're first launching, I think the way you want to do it is launch the standard game, even recognizing you're going to use optional rules.
Hmm.
As long as the optional rules that you're going to use don't involve unit.
Right. So here I'm
Like,
showing a section of the Axis order of battle here. In the standard game, optional game are the ones the buttons here. I don't really, we're staying away from them because at the moment, we've launched the standard game,
standard game.
and I've got
Yeah,
units
standard
here which
game.
will come on, and in the July 1941 and August the turn record track, the first phase and the second phase. That's the July and August for each turn. Turn two, I get reinforcements, and there are none. They're the counters on the optional game side on the right. They're not populated, which you'd expect. But if you click the optional game, you might think that it would delete all the ones on the standard game and populate the ones on the optional game, but it doesn't. It just removes them all from the standard game. And if you launch the game with the optional game, then you have all the optional counters set up, and you're good to go. So
Yeah, yeah. I
I
think
would
that
stay
this
away from these buttons.
I would stay away from the buttons, and yeah, I just would. And in fact, if you put the LOB up there, the other interesting thing we found, this is a first impression,
Hmm.
the reinforcements are listed as July 41 and then August and then September.
Hmm.
But if you go up to the turn track and you can bring that in view there
Turn
at the
track.
top,
Okay,
Mark,
and the main
they're
set
in two
turn
month
track.
increments.
Right, right.
So if somebody out there knows that the assumption we're
Oh no,
making
we found it in the
is,
rules. We did find it in the
oh,
rules.
did we? That they come in a second impulse.
Right,
right?
right. The turn track. So you've got
Okay.
that's why there's two sections. So it's September turn two, for example. You've got July and August. So if you looked in the back on the axis order of battle, you'd see there are some units coming in July and some units coming in August. And the rules are subtly different for the two. The ones that come in July, they they are eligible for rail transport, for example. So they've got
Right.
huge amounts of mobility. They can go wherever you have a access control rail network. They can just move up to 5 units, I think, into your rail capacity. But the units which come on later in the month, they just have to. There's no trains for those guys. They just have to. They're on their own. So there is a
Yeah,
little
and
bit
I
different.
guess that mechanic replicates that they're coming in a month later.
Yeah.
They wouldn't
Hmm.
get as close to the front
Hmm.
as kind of a nice mechanic.
Right.
So anyway, but it just kind of again another one of those impressions. And so I guess one of my biggest takeaways from this game is there's not a lot of right.
Hmm.
It is just a straight up hex and counter game. It is what it is. The components are beautifully done, and you just kind of get into it and playing.
Hmm.
And I think that's, what we're going to do. Probably not in this video, but in the next. But I suspect the Russians, at least my strike, that they're likely going to historically blown away, and that if I can try to avoid surrenders with stacking, and for example, you'll see here, I stacked a 6 combat unit with a tank of a 3 for
Hmm.
9, hoping to avoid getting surrounded, right?
Right.
Getting that defense surrounded
Hmm.
result. That there's just so many factors. 9, Mark's not going to have enough units to get around,
Right.
and I'm hoping to slowly, extricate myself until the mud hit.
Hmm.
I think the 3rd September,
Right. Right. And
which is kind of historical.
the victory conditions, the campaign game which we were playing, well, we set up to play anyway. I will win. The Axis player wins if you control Moscow and eliminate Stalin. Stalin is a counter in Moscow, so if you occupy Moscow, you kill the counter. So the counter in this game with no optional rule is somewhat redundant, but there are optional rules where I think Stalin can move around and encourage the troops, and the same for Hitler. But that's one controlling Moscow, or I also win if I prevent the Russians at the end of the game, the other end of the game, in the May June 1945 turn, from controlling Berlin. So it's similar to No Retreat. There's going to be the first half of the game is the Russians are going to be pounded and the Germans are going to be making hay while the sun shines. But then winter is going to hit and more Russian reinforcements will come on and turn the tide, and then it'll flow the other way. So it is nice in that sense, in that both sides get to go on offensive. And
Yes, yeah, if the Russians survive.
if the Russians survive, yeah. And
If
then
they
and
survive.
and then there are sudden death rules, so the Russians can't just pull back and turtle. If I get if I achieve all objectives associated with that year, so there's different objectives associated with the year. And in 1942, if early war, if the Germans capture Kiev, Kalinin, Leningrad, Rostov, Kharkov, and Stalino, like so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, those 6 cities, then I win. So the Russians have to stand and fight as much as they can. They can't just pull
Yeah.
back and then wait for their reinforcements and then just and um, and so that's nice that they are staged. So if because if you're doing really badly, it's kind of nice sometimes. Like, oh, the dice were against me, or I set it badly, or whatever. The game will end, and you'll be out of your misery, and you can just set up and try again. So there is that. That's kind of a nice feature, which is I like that
Yeah.
also
So
about no
I'm
retreat
looking
has the
forward to
same
playing
same
this.
same flavor to that.
Yeah, I think it's much more straightforward than No Retreat. I like No Retreat in that you're always involved, you have the card playback, but in terms of just the game, getting your hands around the game, this is just you got your units, you see the CRT, you try and hope for the best, and it's a 1 to 6 die roll.
Right.
Pretty
Yes. Yes.
pretty straightforward.
I think there's a lot
So
more going on with the in No Retreat with the card play. You've got there's the two VP tracks. There's a little circular VP track, and the other one, you've got
yeah,
um, well, I actually do like the mechanism of the counter blow mechanism. I think it's a very good mechanism. I do like that. But
Yeah, which to me, it was kind of interesting, but it was just it was an extra element that it took me a while to figure it out. And
yeah,
and I'll tell
maybe
you what I
maybe
did
playing a
like
video
about
game would help out there then, which is just it's just
yes,
out. Yeah,
I was thinking that. I have yet to buy that.
right.
I one of my favorite podcasters on YouTube is Zilla Blitz. He's got a great series of I think 3 videos where he plays through.
Hmm.
And but as he said, it's 6 months away from the final version, and it's still a little tweaky. But
Hmm.
I don't know if I might jump on there
Right,
and
but I think that's why
just
it's
get on it.
cheaper than they're saying it's on sale. It's like earlier a
Oh,
beta release or a beta release at the moment. So,
yeah.
but
I
still,
wonder if then when they come out with the real release, would you get like a discounted price?
I don't know. Who knows? Eventually, it'll go on sale like everything else. But it's
Well, that's true.
25 bucks.
That,
It's for the hours of pleasure you get out of that. It's pretty
yeah,
it's pretty
yeah.
cheap.
Well, and I think the victory conditions in this are a little more straightforward. I remember treat I always struggled
Uh,
with. It's
it's
one
similar.
shore.
Every 3 turns, there's a
Yeah,
certain amount of EPs. That's what it is, right? Actually, so and you go,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, which kind of reminded me of World War II Commander Battle of Bulge,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Which is a similar battle. The Germans ran roughshod for a while and then
Mm-hmm.
slowly got
Right.
pushed
Right.
back.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
you kind of had a timing element to the
Yes.
accumulation of victory
Right.
points anyway.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think we've done a good overview.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's going to be fun. As you said, very simple. You've got your counters there, have the units, and you've got some of the units have slightly different effects, but there's not a lot going on really on terrain. For example, the armor unit can't advance into is more restricted into forest, I think, and there's things like that. But you got just two numbers on the counter. You got the attack strength and the movement strength.
Yeah,
3 and 7 for the cavalry, for example. And
you
so
got
it's
points of control that gonna inhibit the movement.
mhm,
You've got the requirement that everybody that's next to somebody has to fire.
mhm,
So
mhm. Yes, there is that. There's that. Yeah, I think the fortress rule definitely should be brought in as
yes,
a non-optional rule, in my opinion.
I agree.
But
That should be non-optional.
mhm,
I know when we played a couple weeks ago, we ran into trouble both in Leningrad. I did.
mhm, right,
It just because the way it was set up, you almost had to run away. You couldn't just sit in the fortress and allow the Germans to siege,
right,
and you
right,
hope to fend them off.
mhm,
Wasn't a real strategy because you were forced
right.
to come running out of
So
the
see,
fortress to attack.
in the setup, you're not allowed you're not allowed to defend Sevastopol in your initial setup because there is I'm not sure, maybe I can't do it on the first turn. There's not an optional a rule, amphibious invasion, where the Romanians, for example, could launch a sea invasion into Sevastopol and then quickly claim the city
Mm,
there. But there's probably I have to check. That's probably not allowed on turn one, but that's something you'll have to defend against because it is a
yeah.
50-50 shot. I think if I control Odessa, I have a +1 DRM, but there's a dice roll to see whether your troops are lost at sea if you
Mm,
do that. But it could be worth a gamble for the Axis
could
troops.
be. Yes. Well, any final thoughts on our first impressions?
Well, I'm looking forward to giving it a go. It's I think it's I do describe. I'm not sure what the definition of beer and pretzels is, but it seems to me like it's a very big beer and pretzels game.
Yes, I would agree with that. I'm gonna feel very comfortable having my athletic non-alcoholic beers,
Yeah.
but not real beer. So I don't know. That kind of screws with the definition
Hmm.
even more.
Hmm.
Anyway, but yeah,
But we'll see.
this was
We should do a follow up with No Retreat after this one, I think, to see.
we could do that. I
Yeah.
would be up for that,
Hmm.
particularly with the and we you know what we should do? We could do this. This would make for good YouTube video. Is do it electronically.
Right.
Use the software
Hmm.
in a two-handed game and
Hmm.
see because it's all rules enforced. That might go very
Oh,
quickly
right, on use the
on
yes,
Steam.
yes. Then we would definitely be checking the rules book less often because
Yeah,
the rules are all
that
there
would
in
move
Carl
right
Parody's
along.
games. Just to segue to Carl's game, the rules are usually all there. They're just sometimes a little
Yeah,
hard for me to find.
yes, I would agree with that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing this. I
Hmm.
think this is going to be a lot of fun. Um, I had one other comment I want to close with, and then
It's
plus
big,
I made
right?
a comment about
It's big
notes.
footprint. It's a big game. It's two full
Yeah,
size 22 by 17 maps, is it?
yeah, I think it is.
Hmm.
I think it is. But yeah, I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
Right.
I'm looking forward to it. Two thumbs up on
Yes.
me.
Okay. Well, so thanks very much for sticking with us. If you're still here, we'll that's the end of the slightly longer than expected first impressions, and then we'll be posting some more uh, uh, videos as we get the actual battle.